know Jerry the last couple of years. He was a Vietnam helicopter crewman, and after 9/11, he left his financial services business to commit himself to veteran services, and he and Jana put together the Honor Flight program here in the Twin Cities area. So he's been working at this for a number of years, and the tab for putting together one of these flights is something like $85,000. He raises the money through his efforts. He can talk a little bit more about that. Today is also Flag Day, and Jerry's got some thoughts on the meaning of the flag as well. So I would welcome with great applause here, hopefully, to Jana and Jerry Kyser, our presenters today.
Well, thank you, Don. The most aggressive man that I know. You're just relentless. You down. Yes. But thank you, because after a year of getting notices in the mail, handwritten notices, we are members and have been just so enjoying each month. But we really admire you, Don, for just your optimistic attitude. And we are so excited to be here today to share our story. And I was wondering if anyone has been on an honor flight. Yes. All right. Well, and we're honored today to have Dale Noed being here. He was on our last honor flight. And we are thrilled that Fremont will be joining us in November on our honor flight. So we thought it would be appropriate today to start out our time with you by explaining the meaning of the 13 folds of the flag, since it is Flag Day today and the 244th birthday of the Army. So Russ is going to assist Jerry with the folding of the flag, and I will be explaining what each fold means. The first fold is a symbol of life. The second fold is for our belief in eternal life. The third fold is made in honor and remembrance of the veterans departing rank who gave a portion of his or her life for the defense of our country to attain peace throughout the world. The fourth fold stands for our weaker nature as American citizens trusting in God. It's to Him we turn to in times of peace as well as war for His divine guidance. The fifth fold is a tribute to America. In the words of Stephen Decatur, our country is dealing with other countries. May she always be right, but it is still our country, right or wrong. The sixth fold is where our hearts lie. It's with our flag that we pledge allegiance to the flag and the republic it stands for. The seventh fold is a tribute to our armed forces, for it is the armed forces that protect our country and flag against enemies, whether they be domestic or foreign. The eighth fold is a tribute to the one who entered into the valley of the shadow of death, that we might see the light of day, and to honor our mother, for whom it flies on Mother's Day. The ninth fold is a tribute to womanhood, for it is through their faith, love, loyalty, and devotion that the character of a man and woman who have made this country great have been molded. The 10th fold is a tribute to Father, for He has given His sons and daughters for the defense of our country since he or she was first born. The 11th fold is the eyes of Hebrew citizen, represents the lower portion of the seal of King David and King Solomon, and glorifies in their eyes the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The 12th fold in the eyes of the Christian citizen, represents the emblem of eternity and glorifies in their eyes God the Father, the Son, and Holy Ghost. When the flag is completely folded, which some consider the 13th fold, the stars are uppermost, reminding us of our national motto, "In God We Trust." After the flag is completely folded and tucked in, it has the appearance of a cocked hat, reminding us of the soldiers who served under General George Washington and the sailors, the Marines who served under Captain John Paul Jones, and followed by their comrades and shipmates in the United States Armed Forces, together preserving for us the rights, privileges, and freedoms we all enjoy today. To date, the date and source of origin of this flag folding procedure is unknown. According to some sources, it was the Gold Star Mothers of America, while others believe it originated from an Air Force chaplain stationed at the United States Air Force Academy. Regardless of its source of origin, it is provided as a patriotic service to all.
We would like to have everyone in the room who has served in the military in any capacity to please stand to be recognized for your service. Please rise.
You know, we may not all be veterans, but we are all patriots and love what the flag of the United States of America stands for. Two of the purposes of the Optimist Club are to promote an active interest in good government and civic affairs, as well as promoting patriotism and work for international accord and friendship among all people.
Honor Flight Twin Cities is a noble cause, serving the extension of the Optimist Club. The mission of Honor Flight is to America is to bring World War II and Korea veterans to Washington, D.C. to honor themselves, their family, and their battle buddies for what they did for America. We'd like to have a brief introduction Honor Flight video showing a documentary of by Inside Out Studios about how we got started. Honor Flight is a military operation. We decided that since these men and women were in the military that we would put them back into the military. Instead of them sitting around drinking coffee and talking about their maladies, we put them back into the organization. Now, I was a sergeant in the military for 2 tours in Vietnam. I did 1st Infantry Division. I was a helicopter machine gunner crew chief. Went back after I was wounded, came back and was in another aviation brigade, and I got to learn to fly a helicopter that way. I had hundreds of combat missions, and so it was fun to be able to put them back into it. So I had on one of our honor flights a sergeant major on that. That's the highest ranking enlisted guy. And also on that one, we had a major general retired. He was the George Steiner. He was the retired commanding officer of the Blue Devils out at Fort Snelling. And he said, Jerry, you run this like a sergeant major. And I said, well, good. And he says, so I said, well, how about ceremonially promoting me? He said, okay, we can do that. And so one of the sergeant major gave me his pin. He put that on my hat. And he said, okay. And I promoted myself to sergeant major because I could. It was my company. Kind of like Idi Amin, But I smartly promoted my beloved wife to major general. And so, General,
in the last 11 years, we've done 22 honor flights. We've taken 1,600 World War II veterans, 300 Korea War veterans, and 6 terminally ill Vietnam veterans. Each flight, we do 2 flights each year, one in the spring and one in the fall. Each flight now is about $90,000. And we're so blessed by the contributions of so many people and many memorials. And Jerry's going to talk a little bit about the kind of the workings of the honor flight. As he said, it's a military operation, so we have about 180 people on each flight, and that's about the size of a company. And within that company, we have 4 platoons, and we have 20 squads with 20 squad leaders.
Every veteran has to have a guardian. That's just the way it is. They may think that they're pretty hot stuff. You know, I'm 85, 95 years old, and I don't need anybody to take care of me. And I says, yeah, you talk pretty big. By 2 o'clock, you run out of gas. And so we have a great time there where they're up at 4, airport at 5, we're airborne at 6, we're at the Iwo Jima Memorial at 10:15. And we have police escort. And that is great because we go just like El Presidente. We have 4 buses and big motorcycle cop in the front and a car in the back. And we, last time we run 24 red lights in downtown Washington, D.C. And the people look at us, who are those guys? This cop comes up, he stops everybody in the middle of the intersection, bangs on people's cars, and people are freaking out. And so I asked the cop, he says, well, do you like doing with the honor flight? Oh yeah, it's just total power.
You know, 1 month prior to the flight, we do a guardian training. And 2 weeks prior to the flight, we do a pre-flight meeting where we meet all of the participants of the honor flight. Now, the last flight that we had, it's the only thing that is constant is change. And we had 132 changes within a 3-month period of organizing the honor flight. And so many people ask, well, how can I help? Can I help you do that? Well, one person really just has to do that administrative work. And so it was shortly before the last flight when I had 6 cancellations on one day. And we always it coincides so much with the optimist's creed. And this is what we have to think only of the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best, to be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit the presence of trouble. We can't get upset about it. We just have to flow, and that's how it's united us in our relationship serving our warriors. Yes. So this day that I had 6 cancellations, Jerry happened to tell me a story that morning. He said, last night I watched a documentary. It was about a World War II hero that had 4 Bronze Stars, V for Valor, the French Legion Award, which is compared to the Congressional Medal of Honor given by the French government. And he said, so it's quite a few years ago that this was done. Tom Brokaw took him to Normandy. So he was a pretty popular guy, but he lived in Brainerd. Jerry goes, I got to try to get a hold of him to go on this next honor flight. And I said, okay, go for it. I got some space. And that very day, as he was telling me the story, I looked on my emails, and there was an email from a beloved daughter, and she said, I would love to have my 98-year-old father participate in an honor flight, and she told me a little bit about him. And I said, "Hey, Jerry, I've got somebody who's ready to go on the flight, a World War II guy. His name is what?" It was him. It was him. We both wept, because we do weep over our veterans. We love them so much. And he was able to go on that flight. For this past flight, we got a grant from the Support Our Troops. And with that, we had to verify for them, for the grant, to receive it, a DD-214, which is a separation paper. And so I got his, in fact, I had told his daughter that on the phone, I called her right away, and I said, I need a DD-214. Funny you should mention that, I've got it in my hand. I thought, what in the world is this? Why should I keep this? And so it was just another, just divinely inspired. And so she faxed it over immediately. So we did some quick rearranging, and he and his grandson were able to go. And I said, his DD-214 says he's 100 years old. Well, like many of our veterans, they lied about their age to get into the military. He was 16 years old when he signed up to go. You all know people or have heard of stories that is what took place. So that's just one of the many stories of how people are really, they're united with the honor flight by this sort of intervention.
Stories. We have, 1,800 of them plus. And the reunion of many people, two veterans who haven't seen each other in a long time, does happen quite a bit, believe it or not. And the one that I really like to talk about is on Iwo Jima, a Marine infantry sergeant was there, and towards the other end of the island that they got to Iwo Jima so they could put some landing fields on it. And a P-51 was coming back from a bombing raid with B-29s. He was having some engine trouble. He landed there. And of course, the snipers were shooting at him when he got out of his cockpit, and he jumped into the trench by the side of the runway. And here's this guy from Richfield, Minnesota. And they talked a little bit, and he says, "Hey, get that guy's rifle here, no infantry." He said, "I'm a pilot. I don't do that." He says, "Well, you are now, because we're going to get your airplane fixed so you can get the heck out of here. So you're infantry right now." Well, they started talking. They were both from Richfield, Minnesota, believe it or not. So he got his aircraft fixed, cranked up, and he was gone. Never saw each other again. And so on an honor flight maybe 5 years ago, they got on the airplane, and and they looked up at our biographies that we have. Everybody gets a biography before they go, when they get to the airport. And he looked up and he says, "I know that guy." They hadn't seen each other since Iwo Jima 65 years ago. And they're both, he says, "Can I be on the same squad?" And I says, "I don't know. What do you think, General?" He says, "Well, okay, we'll put them together." So that's how it was. They hadn't seen each other. They live in the same town a couple miles apart, hadn't seen each other in 65 years. So that's the kind of stuff that we get.
You know, one of my favorite stories comes from the very first honor flight that we did. Our World War II hero, Ken Porwell, was a POW and survived the Bataan Death March in the Philippines. He was on a POW ship headed for Japan, and it was sunk by a United States submarine. And he survived that. Then he went to a little place working in a coal mine, and it was called Nagasaki. So the atomic bomb was dropped. He survived that. And when he came home, he spent the next year in a hospital. I mean, this is a hero that had so much wisdom. And I was so excited to hear about the highlight of his day. And so after the flight, I said, Ken, tell me about the most exciting thing that happened to you on the flight today. He said, it was the soft serve ice cream at the buffet. Okay, Ken. He said, Jana, it's the small things in life that I love, because I went without that for 5 years, and I just cherish those moments and that taste. And I go, wow. Jerry is going to narrate just a 5-minute video, because I think, a picture can really tell a lot about our flight. And so if we manage to get the right clip in here, then we'll go ahead and show that, Sergeant Major. Okay, hop to it.
So bossy.
While he's talking about that, while he's getting that ready, viewing these videos, you saw a clip about the V-mails, or the mail call, and how important that is to each and every veteran. When Jerry is done, I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about that and a way that you could participate. Well, viewing both of these videos now, you hopefully you get somewhat of a feeling about how special getting mail was. It was a real morale booster during the war. As Jerry said, there was one fellow that had never received any letters. So on his mail call, he was just elated. And so there is a process that was used during World War II called V-mail. And it was created so that they could work on it took up so much cargo space on ships. They had bags and bags of mail. So the United States Postal Service started a process of filming all letters. These letters were filmed and had to be on specific kinds of paper. I have put an example at your table if you'd like to look at it. It's called V-mail. The V stands for victory. No. And this process was really simple. The soldier or the family member wrote letters on this special forms, and then it was photographed on microfilm. A reel of 16 millimeter microfilm could contain up to 18,000 letters. For every 150,000 letters, 1 ton of cargo space was freed up. So this was a very clever method. It was really inspired by the British airgraph system. But once the film was copied, and they'd have a few snags on copying the letters, because the women always wanted to kiss the letters with bright red lipstick, and they would get caught in the machines. So it was called the Scarlet Scourge. And so they really tried to advertise, and they had so many advertising campaigns about using V-mail. The soldiers did not have to pay for any postage for this mail. And so on our flights, if we have World War II veterans, we always want to include some V-mails, because it brings back so many memories for them. And I know Fremont, you probably can, you're shaking your head, because what happened after they received them, they had 9 different centers in the United States that processed these. But once they got overseas, they were copied. But when they were copied, they ended up being 1/4 the size of the V-mail that you're looking at right now. This happens to be a V-mail that announces the birth of my dear husband. And it's an original.
April 22nd, 1945. I'm a war baby, yes.
Yes.
Forget me not, baby.
So it was fun to find this. We wouldn't have known the significance of it had we not been involved this. But one of the things that mail does when they receive this is oftentimes the guardian is responsible to receive the mail. And we have many other people who don't know the veterans who also write letters, but it has brought families back together because when someone has been estranged from a family member, many, many times we hear about them getting a letter from them. And it bridges the gap in their relationships. So this is so very, very important. And we have so many stories of miracles really happening through the power of simple mail. And, okay. Sorry, I kind of lost my spot. Okay, Jerry. So if if everyone saw this, here you go, Jerry.
Bridging the gap, that's what we're talking about. We're bridging the gap with this organization. We bridge a gap with these veterans. My father was in the 97th Infantry, the same as you were, and he was in the same place as you were. And when I was just in Normandy, I was there for 2 weeks. Paris, Normandy, Bastogne, over into Germany. And on Memorial Day, I was at Omaha Beach for Memorial Day. It was pretty significant. I was able to see the places that my father saw. He came into the 97th Infantry. They were training, and when all the needed replacement, 50% of his OCS class went as replacements to all the folks that didn't make it, officers that didn't make it at Normandy. That was 50%. Every one of them were killed. And then they started another new infantry unit called 97th Infantry. And he was a platoon leader in the infantry there. And they put him over on a ship and got him over to Cheerborn and said, "You're in Patton's Army." And they said, "Oh, crap, we're dead meat." And they got them understanding what happened. Patton was moving up to save these, reinforce the, or as the 101st Airborne said, they didn't reinforce us, they just reinforced us, not replaced us. But so he was involved with that, so I got to be in the places where he was at. Then they said, go across the Kyser and Rhine and go to Czechoslovakia. And so I have maps, what my father did in those days, and well, I'll show you those maps when you come on our flight. So he was at the same place he was when they got out. They were fighting the Waffen SS at the end. Patton, they weren't surrendering, and Patton said, "I'll just shell them till they run out of ammo. Make sure they don't live." So that was the way war was. It was nasty business. Then they put him on boats, came back to the States, and they shipped him to invade Japan. So my father was also in Japan, the same as you were, sir. He was there for 16 till another year. So I was out without a parent for 18 months. How do I handle it? It's important, though, to bridge the gap, what we're talking about here. We talked about them not telling their story. My best example of that was a Marine from Iwo Jima called Howard. I won't tell you his last name, but Howard was a quiet man, his wife said. At the reunion, his wife came up and said, he says, Howard never really told anyone about what he did. He had a trunk in the basement that had his memorabilia in there. And you talked to him about being an ambassador to what they did during World War II. And now he talks all about everything. He says, we can't shut him up now. It is joyous. One more story about that is that it's a bridging between the Vietnam combat veteran and a World War II combat veteran, a Marine, and a Iraq veteran. And on this flight, my friend, who was a director of Honor Flight, was taking care of a World War II Marine infantry guy, and he says, you know, Al, I'd like to, Al Bailey was a director of Honor Flight out of the national organization, helping out on this one. He says, I'd like to, if it's possible, to see my grandson's grave at Arlington. Well, we don't usually do that. We go to the changing of the guard up there, but because it's up at the, how many of you have been at Arlington? It's way up at the top, and the new guys are down at the bottom. And he says, when did he die? And he says, 3 years ago today. Oh, man. So he said, okay, I got to do it. So Al went down, found out where he was, and he says, get the other guys in a wheelchair and bring them down to the lower level. So Al Bailey got down there, and he found the gravestone, Luke James Zimmerman from Appleton, Wisconsin.
We have 400 guardians that are on our waiting list, waiting to go on a flight. We have 200 veterans on our waiting list. Obviously, our World War II veterans have preference, and so they go on. Fremont, I got his application today. He'll be on the next flight. And so we're so thrilled about that. I have a few closing marks, but we want to just share just a 5-minute clip that was actually the first flight that we took. And it says a lot about our veterans, and there are several that were interviewed. So we'd just like to show that, and then I have a few closing remarks.
The youngest veteran now is 91. We've taken 225,000 veterans and 165,000 guardians.
You know, serving others, just like in the Optimist Club, really shifts our focus. It's such an honor and a privilege to serve our military heroes through the honor flight for the last 11 years, and we just cherish what has been committed to our trust. They fought, as Liz Strophus said, they fought to keep America free for us. Now it's our turn to respect their service to our country. So I have 3 last quick requests. 1, go out and thank a veteran. There are a few here today, so you can get started right away. Number 2, write a letter to thank a veteran. If you wish to do this for our November 2nd flight, that's our next flight, I'd be happy to serve as the postmaster with the mail, for the mail call. And our address is on the business card. There are business cards at your table. There are also thank you cards that you could take and just write a letter. You can write a letter on one of the V-mail samples. You could have that and write a letter. And on our website as well, it's honorflighttwincities.org. And the third is, we welcome you to come to our Welcome Home celebration. It's on November 2nd at 10 p.m. And we have, as Jerry said, we have bagpipers and a full band, and we just welcome everyone home. So you could be a part of that. It's at Terminal 2 at Hubert Humphrey Terminal. And we ask you, any kind of organization that you have, come. And the flags at the table today, feel free to take one that's on the centerpiece. You can just pull it out and take that home with you. And we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have after, because I think that you have some other business, to take care of.
One thing, though, people ask us all the time about, who does your fundraising? It is a noble cause. It is a wonderful thing. And we don't really do have big fundraisers. The good Lord Jesus does our fundraising. We just cash the checks. They come in from $10 to $100,000. And over the last 11 years, it's $1.8 million. It's just absolutely unbelievable. So thanks.
It's an unbelievable flight. I was honored to be on one of those several years ago, and I really enjoyed taking my father-in-law. I do encourage any of you to speak with them afterwards. If you'd like to donate or help in the flights, please contact them. I'm sure that Jesus is there, but the check is what they really need. And we really appreciate it. You guys, Major General Jana and Sergeant Major Jerry, I want to salute you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
It is so important to honor the vets, and your commitment to optimism, and now with our club, is great. I want to share with you just a plaque that you can have to
awesome.
keep at home.
We'll put it on our wall of honor.
Please do that.